Alright everyone, it's Colin Ellis here and welcome to another Culture and Coffee podcast for Monday the 4th of July. I can't tell by my accent, I'm back home. It's very easy to slip back into the old accent as soon as you're around people who are like you. The accent comes flowing freely back. It's been really interesting actually, kind of seeing the kids around there. So my son's become a bit of an accent chameleon. He's adopting whatever accent people are talking to him in. But it's great. It's great to be home in the English summer where it's absolutely freezing and it's done nothing but rain all week. Anyway, that's my weather update. It's always good to get that out of the way. I'm in a cafe called Chapter of Us. Chapter of Us is in the Baltic Triangle area of Liverpool, so it's quite near the old docks, and essentially it's a series of bonded warehouses which are all from the late 19th century. And it's called the Baltic Triangle because basically the set of warehouses that have been converted are where they used to store all of the materials that they used to trade with people in the Baltic states. And it's fabulous what they've done here. All the old warehouses, where I'm sat right now is like a little kind of a modern cafe booth, but I'm sat right next to the old exposed brick walls here. For those of you who have been to the UK, they do, obviously they've got loads and loads of old buildings. I remember we had some friends in New Zealand once, and she was like, one of them was like, I was really homesick. I was like, oh, what do you miss? She was like, old buildings. I'm like, okay. So how about you? I was like, I miss the footy. That's it. But yeah, exposed brick walls, and there's some inside steel girders, but the walls go up, I don't know, 20 feet here. It's a fabulous space, it really is, but there's breweries and loads of eating places and kind of all of these small pop-up shops. Just a great little area to be in. We had a family party last night. I project managed a family reunion, and it was so great seeing people, and the subject of this week's podcast, I'm going to talk about kind of our professional working lives and the evolution of us. And there's a lot of people who I saw last night I haven't seen for 30 years, maybe 30 years. And it was great to reconnect, talk and tell some of those old stories. My family isn't necessarily close, but then when we come together, we know how to have a party. We know how to have a drink or two. Lots of reminiscing, lots of old stories, and lots of reminders, of course, of kind of where we came from and the background to who we are and what we do. And everyone's gone in their different directions, and it was just a great night. It was so great to reconnect with the family. It's great being home in England, I have to say. There's so much here that's familiar. Now, where I'm from is about kind of 8 miles east. And so, kind of when I'm back in the city, you hear all those, real Liverpoolian accents, which is fabulous. Never far away from a culture story while I'm here. And I'm trying to take a break. I'm not very good. I've mentioned this in the past. I'm not very good at taking a break. I'm trying to take a break. But there was a story just yesterday in the newspaper here about Chelsea Football Club and the fact that they've got a toxic culture. So, of course, I read that with interest. And, the new owners, they've got new owners, the same people that own the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's a favourite team of mine. And he said, we're going to change the culture. I'm like, it's a bold statement. He's like, we've got consultants in. I'm like, well, it's a start, I suppose. And of course, the way you change a culture is through behaviour change. It's helping people with their behaviour. It's losing those behaviours that have got in the way of the evolution of vibrant culture. And of course, a toxic culture will undermine performance, will undermine results. It doesn't matter whether you're a Premier League team or whether you're a small, kind of company here in Liverpool. Never far away from the news. So yes, Chapter of Us in the Baltic Triangle, and I'm not having a cup of coffee today. I am having a good old-fashioned pot of English breakfast tea. I thought, if I'm gonna do tea, it has to be back home in Liverpool. Now, if you don't know the story of tea, English breakfast tea is a blend. It's a blend of black teas from India, Sri Lanka, Kenya. But its name, English breakfast tea, you'd be surprised to learn, maybe, comes from America. There was a tea merchant named Richard Davis in New York in 1843 who called it English breakfast tea because that was how he associated it. It was something that the English had in the morning to get their day started. In the morning, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, just drink it non-stop. Now, tea, unlike coffee, is derived from a fruit. It's like a small cherry. Tea is a leaf, which is plucked from a plant in a garden or a tea garden. And for me, when I think about tea, it's synonymous with India and Sri Lanka, or what was Ceylon. Ceylon tea, I remember we grew up, that was quite exotic. Ooh, Ceylon tea. Sri Lankan tea. And so, yeah, they pluck the leaves and then they grade them and sort them into similar sizes. Because different sizes brew in different ways. And then there's a 4-stage process. So the first stage is withering. I feel like that after last night's family party. So withering, the leaves are laid out to dry, basically because tea leaves hold lots of water. So they leave them out to dry to remove the water that they hold. And then the next stage is rolling, where there's like a machine that really twists the leaves and turns them until they're almost stringy in the way that they look. Now the next stage is the most important, that's oxidation, because this is where the taste is really determined. So they're put out in these big troughs, or they're laid out on like large tables, and they're left between 30 minutes and 2 hours, and the temperature's around about 26 degrees. And then what happens is the leaves, wherever they're laid out, they react with the air around them, and that changes the colour of the leaf. And again, you know, how long you leave them depends on the taste. If you leave them longer in this oxidation process, then you get a stronger tea. For lighter taste, then you stop it, the oxidation process, early when the leaves are like a light brown. And then the last stage is drying. So they pass through these big, hot, like massive hair dryers, which then reduces the water content down again to about 3%. And then they pack them and sort them. And that's it. Make it sound like a super easy process, like I always do. You know, there's a real art to making good tea. And you just know when you've had a good, you know when you've had a good cup of tea. Now, the big question, of course, and especially being back in the Northwest where we take this stuff really seriously, is do you put your milk in first or second? Now, when I was a kid growing up, the milk always went in first because we used to brew big pots of tea. We had massive teapots with tea cozies. I don't know if your grandparents or even your parents, maybe you guys still do it. So massive teapot, big, like, you know, sometimes, you know, I remember going around to my aunties and uncles, they had a big pot of tea. They would always put in 3 tea bags because they liked their tea really strong. My mum and dad always used to use 2 tea bags. Put your milk in first because the tea's been brewing in the pot. And you put your milk on afterwards. Not many people use teapots as much as they should these days. And I think it's like a real therapeutic process, much like making a coffee. It's just actually brewing a pot of tea. So scientists actually prove that putting the milk in second creates unevenness of the drink because the flavour loses its structure, which I didn't know. But for me, I always brew my tea first and put the milk in second. I kind of know how long to leave the tea bag. I don't want it to look too weak. I just remembered that one of my aunties, when you served up a cup of tea and it was too weak, she used to say it was fortnightly. She's like, oh, it's like there's your tea, and she's like, oh, it's a bit fortnightly that. I remember saying to my dad when I was young, I was like, what does she mean? She said she means 2 week. 2 week fortnight. The tea's a bit fortnightly. So yes. Yeah, so there we go, tea. And tea was a big part of my upbringing. So yeah, originally from a village called Rainhill. It's famous for passenger trains. We've been joking about it while we've here. We've paid a few visits back because my brother still lives there, my dad still lives there. And it's literally everywhere. The fact that passenger railways started in this tiny little village 8 miles east of Liverpool. I suppose every town, every village has got a story to tell. And that was a big part of my upbringing, that kind of what surrounded that. I wasn't very good at school. Just school, it wasn't my thing. I wasn't one of these kids who had their lives sorted. Like, I look at my kids now, you know, my son wants to be an actor, my daughter, she wants to be a criminal psychologist or criminologist. I just didn't have I just wasn't that sorted at school. When I think back, you know, I had a happy childhood. I wasn't an unhappy kid. Mum and Dad didn't have much money. We used to holiday classically in Wales. If you're from Liverpool, you holidayed in Wales. And then Dad was really careful with his money, and so he saved. And then we went further down into the south of England. So, you know, back in the day, it was like a 4, 5, 6 hour drive before motorways. And so we used to holiday in Devon, which is on the south coast of England. And that, you know, I've got really good kind of happy memories of those. And I think as a kid, you know, and, you know, Mum brought us up to be good human beings. You know, I'm the oldest of 3 boys. So I'm 52. My brother's 2 years younger than me, and I've got another brother, Stephen, who's 6 years younger than me. Mark is in the middle there. And we would, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on being what we would call good human beings, like just nice boys. Didn't want us to be in trouble with the police and all of those kind of things. And I think that was a conscious thing. I always wanted to be polite. I always wanted to be pleasant to people. Even as a kid, I see it in my own kids now. But I couldn't really do anything other than play football and make people laugh. That was, you know, my thing. And I remember kind of when I got to 15, 16, I'd stopped playing football then because I'd discovered girls, and I'd started smoking briefly, which is kind of, I think it's a teenage thing, that, isn't it? You just want to be in with the in crowd. It was a brief dalliance with that. I was really interested in music. I loved music, but didn't really play an instrument. Oh, I did. I played a woodwind instrument called the oboe. I don't know how I ended up playing that. I got some stick for that, definitely. I had some friends, but no real best friends at school. I had a lot of acquaintances. And kind of that late teens, I was just like, what do I want to do? And I really felt a pressure, you know, and at that stage, because I didn't really know what to do, there was a lot of arguing, a lot of teenage hormones. Mum and I would fall out frequently. Dad would take a back seat and just kind of watch it play out, and then just lose his temper with me and my mum, and we would fight all of the time. Mum was really into comparisons, so I got compared to other kids. You got to, you know, and it's that classic thing is, you got to figure your life out. You got to decide what you want to do. You got to decide. And I had no idea what I wanted to do, none whatsoever. Ended up flunking my exams. I went to sixth form college. You do high school in England, and then you go do 2 extra years in sixth form. We did these things called A levels, but I didn't do that well in my high school exams. And I remember Dad saying, if you don't figure it out, you're going to do a trade. You're going to be a, you know, kind of bricklayer, or, you know, that was how he was brought up. You know, he was brought up working class, and you had to have a trade. Dad did all the jobs. He was a barber. He was a rent collector. You know, he was a milkman. You know, the family business is window cleaning. So his dad was a window cleaner. My Uncle Tom was a window cleaner. And that was the kind of family business. So it was like, you've got to get a trade. And I eventually got suspended from sixth form college for playing roulette, not Russian roulette. And at that stage I had a choice. And my dad was like, what are you going to do with your life? And I didn't know. And in those days, you could just write and get a job. And so we just wrote to a couple of people. Like, banking was like seen as the career. And so we wrote to a bank and got a job. I had 2 interviews. I had one in Warrington. I had one in St Helens, which are towns not far from where we lived. And it gave me a job. I was earning £4,587 a year. £4,000 a year. That was my very first job. And I loved it. And I got into work and I thrived. And like, often I hear this as kind of like, oh, he's ambitious, he wants to get on. And I did want to progress, but what I wanted to do more than anything else was learn. I had this real thirst for knowledge. I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, I wanted to earn more money, mainly for booze and records back in the day. But I wanted to do all of those things. But I found I was in an environment where I just loved working with people. I loved being around people. My personality is one that gets energy from people. But I just wanted to be in and around all of those people. And obviously, like in the work that I do now, I do lots of research and read lots of quotes and stuff. There's one from Gary Vaynerchuk which I love. It's one that there's some quotes that I kind of keep near to me when you're suffering or low in confidence, or just a reminder of where you came from. And he said, "Don't ever let your circumstances determine your outcome. You can always control your own destiny." And even though I know that now, kind of back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, I never wanted to miss out on an opportunity. I was always prepared to take a risk. I recognised that, work was something I would have to do for years. And it was really on me to find the enjoyment in it. I never really wanted to take a step backwards. I was happy to take steps sideways and kind of going forward. But I had this relentless desire to just keep moving, keep growing, keep moving forward. I learned a lot from the people around me. I've mentioned in the past, I used to keep notebooks where I used to write these things down that people did or things that people said that made a difference. I used to write these little kind of stories down. I don't think I have that book anymore. Just things that inspired me, and I use some of those stories in my own work now to inspire other people. And throughout my career, I always looked for what's that next opportunity. I had a good job in the bank, but I left it to come and work in Liverpool for the local newspaper, the Liverpool Echo, selling advertising space. My parents were horrified. But I just saw it as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to get to meet more people. I wanted to be in the city. Even though the bank was safe and steady, but, didn't pay that well. It was all in your pension and your mortgage, which was their way of tying you to the company for years. And then, I got a job offer to be a project manager. And that was a big move that really changed my life. But it was a massive risk that I took. And our lives are full of these. Your working life, your professional life is full of these. And I think what you have to do is find, if you want more for yourself, if you want better, if you want to grow, then you have to look for those opportunities. French author Anne Nin said, anyone's life shrinks and expands on the proportion of your willingness to take risks and try new things. And so you have to kind of look for those moments. You have to seek them out. Sometimes you might have to create them for yourself. And it doesn't matter what age you are, you're never done. You're never done. There's always opportunities out there for you to learn and grow. But even if you're in a job that you love right now, there's opportunities every day to make such a positive difference to the people around you just by expressing that enjoyment. Got to take a sip of my tea, excuse me. By expressing that enjoyment, expressing that love that you have for your work, and trying to, kind of be that role model for other people. I never imagined for 1 minute that I would work for myself. I never imagined I'd quit the corporate world. I enjoyed leading big teams. I enjoyed kind of being around lots of people. I enjoyed questioning some of the BS cultural things that we did, and then creating with my teams different ways of doing it. I quit the corporate world age 46, 2 young kids, no money in the bank. We'd emigrated 9 months earlier to a country where I knew nobody. I didn't have any connections to, go back and sell things to. It just felt like the right thing to do. It just felt like I had this real desire to do something, and the easiest thing to do would have been to not do it. The easiest thing to do would have been to say, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But I took a leap of faith. A leap of faith. Was it easy? No, it was very, very difficult at the start. And for the first kind of 1 to 18 months, it was difficult. There was a lot of debt. there's a fair few arguments, and as you kind of try and navigate it, but you've really got to believe in yourself. You've got to back yourself. You've got to kind of really invest time, effort, energy into thinking about what it is that you want to become. And I was talking about this to a guy, and he sent me a really lovely email, so I just decided I would phone him out of the blue just to talk to him, because he wanted to do something similar. And I said, you've just got to back yourself. You've got to surround yourself, and by that I mean you don't have to physically surround yourself, but the people that you read, the people that inspire you, the books that you read, you've got to be able to take inspiration from them. Don't just be like a content vacuum, though. It's how are you going to use that inspiration? How are you going to use that information to really fuel your own fire and create the future that you want? It's not about being a millionaire. It's not about being famous. It is for some people, and that's cool, and that's totally fine. I think that the essence of empathy is we want the best for everybody. We want everyone to live their best lives. And when I think back, I think that's been the essence of my life. And coming back here, it really reminds me of the risks that I took and the opportunities that I created for myself. And listen, I made a ton of mistakes along the way. I think that's just the nature of being human. But I've never stopped looking for better. Never stopped looking for better. I think my parents created the foundations on which my future was built, but it's really been up to me to drive that forward. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this. A bit of a trip down memory lane for me. It's like really did a podcast all about yourself. I totally did. I'm sorry, not sorry. So I hope you enjoyed this. Had a little bit of inspiration. Get on the English tea. Interested to know whether you're a milking first or second person. Love to get any feedback you might have of the podcast. Of course, if you want me to cover anything, let me know. Enjoy your day wherever you are. Ta-ra for now.